Hello, my name is Dennis DePra. I am a volunteer at the Alaska Veterans Museum here in Anchorage, Alaska. And the museum has, for many years, conducted oral histories or performed oral histories and interviewed veterans. What you're about to view is the full, unedited interview with, or limited edited video with Fred Kehl. Fred Kehl was, he's passed now, a World War II veteran who served in the U.S. Army in the 42nd Infantry Division, also known as the Rainbow Division. Fred service. The division was a late war division, fought in Europe, and came on the line near the Rhine River toward the end of the war, right around the time of the Battle of the Bulge. And he'll talk about his active military service and combat in Europe from around that period till the collapse of Germany in May 1945. Uh, I'll let Fred speak for himself. At some point, I will do a follow up video to this, hopefully with some of the snippets from his interview and some other items, photos, and maps for greater context about what he's speaking about. Many of you who know about World War II, this will be common knowledge. It won't be anything new. For others, it is new. World War II has been over since 1945, and we're in 2025 now. So there's a lot of people, young people, and even older people that are somewhat, uh, they just don't know about it. That's all. So I'm going to post this. What should be noted is Mr. Keel was in the 42nd Infantry Division, liberated Dachau. So he got to witness what happened during World War II firsthand, as far as the genocide that occurred. So I hope you enjoy it and follow us on Facebook and other places at the Alaska Veterans Museum. Thank you. Goodbye.
Career Center, and we're interviewing Fred Kehl. The interviewer is Sue Ellen Wright Novak, and the cameraman is Dan Sparkman. Fred, you ready to begin?
I am ready.
Okay, where and when were you born, sir?
I was born in Highland Park, Illinois on February the 3rd, 1926.
Okay, and where is that specifically in Illinois?
That is about 5 miles north of Chicago
North of Chicago. Okay.
on the lake.
Ah, okay. Did you grow up then in the small town, or did you live outside of it?
I grew up in Lake Bluff, Illinois and Waukegan, Illinois,
Okay.
and then migrated to Alaska.
Whoa. Okay. So were you the outdoors type at that point in time?
I was,
Okay, so that just kind of came natural, right?
yes,
Okay. Where'd you go to elementary school?
to several. I went to Lake Bluff Elementary, North Chicago Elementary, two elementary schools in North Chicago, and Waukegan Township High School.
Okay, then was that a junior, senior high, or was
It
that?
was a senior high.
Okay, senior high, all right.
They didn't have junior highs in those days.
Okay, all right. Any college?
Only in the Army. They were Army schools, counterintelligence school, and criminal investigation school in Germany.
Okay. All right, how about childhood memories? Any childhood memories that really stick out? Kind of framed you and filled in the story about you?
I guess you can term me kind of a hellraiser because the chauffeur's daughter, which lived in the cottage next to ours, whose name was Marjorie Benson, and I got a hold of a water-filled fire extinguisher and tricked her into coming out of her cottage. And when she got into range, I let her have it. And she turned around, went back in crying, and I had to run into the woods. And my dad found me, and I got the consequences with willow switch. You know.
Early wet t-shirt contest. She didn't like that, huh?
No, she didn't. I don't blame her.
Well, that's true. Kind
We were
of
both about 4.5 or 5
Oh,
years
okay,
old
that young,
at that
okay.
time. Yeah.
okay. So did you come from a big family?
No, just a brother who was 7 years older than I was.
And what'd your dad do?
He was the gardener for Earl Reynolds, on whose property we lived, and he did all the gardening work for this millionaire person, Earl Reynolds. The chauffeur was there and his family, and the butler and his family lived in
Good Lord.
the big house with the Reynoldses.
Now, is this part of Reynolds Aluminum or
No, they were
okay.
bankers in
Bankers,
Chicago.
okay.
And when the Depression hit, we had to move because they went down the tubes with just about everybody else. The monetary system went kaput.
So where'd you go then? And
Well,
what was
that's
your dad
when we
doing?
moved to North Chicago.
Okay.
And from there we moved to Waukegan.
And your dad stayed in like the landscaping and gardening business?
Yeah, he finally worked for the WPA, which is called the Works Project Administration. And during the Depression, the government gave him different projects to work on, one of which was the tuberculosis sanitation in Waukegan, sanitary
Yeah.
in Waukegan, and he did all of the landscaping
Wow.
on that project, which is still there today.
All right. Did your mom work?
She worked as a laundress for some of the people who were then known as the 400. These were 400 millionaires that lived in Lake Forest, Illinois. And they were the Armours and the Swifts and the Pools and people who had lots of money and were not affected by the
By the Depression.
Depression.
Yep.
and she was their laundress for PD Armour, who lived on the lake and who married a Russian princess.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's different.
Yeah. And by that time, I must have been around 10 or 12 years old. I caddied for those rich people on a private golf course next to where my mother worked as a laundress called Shore Acres Country Club. And these same very wealthy people played on that golf course all the time, and I caddied for them. And just about all the money that I made, I gave to my mother because at that time my dad couldn't work because of an accident that he had had that left him crippled.
Were the tips pretty good caddying for these rich folks or not?
Yes, they were.
They were?
Yes, they
Okay.
were. And of course, you know, a dollar was worth 100 cents in
Yeah,
those
it's
days.
worth a lot.
A lot of money. Yeah.
So how long did you do the caddying?
Oh, probably till I was about 13 or 14.
Okay.
When we moved to Waukegan, I had to start thinking about homework in high school. And I always regarded school as being like a prison.
A necessary evil, huh?
A necessary evil. I didn't like school at all. I was not a very good student.
Okay. Were you in extracurricular activities then too, or no?
No,
No. Okay.
no,
So that was just not a happy time.
no, it wasn't. My brother, however, was academically 10 times smarter than I was. And he should have been, a success, but it turned out in the end that he wasn't. And I, with my lack of academics and lack of interest in school in my early days, should have been a failure. I turned out the opposite. I turned out to be a success.
Late bloomers,
Yeah,
bloomers,
late
Fred. That's what
bloomers.
it's called.
I guess so. Yeah.
So you graduated from high school, then what did you do?
Well, then I was drafted into the Army at
So that happened right
18
away?
Right
Okay.
away, yeah. And went to Camp Blanding, Florida for my basic training. I was drafted at Fort Sheridan, Illinois, which is also right on the lake.
Okay.
Did 13 weeks of basic training, and when I finished that, I was assigned to Camp Gruber, Oklahoma, where the 42nd Rainbow Division was housed. That was their home base. And I was put into the L Company of the 232nd Infantry Regiment.
Okay.
And that's who I went overseas with.
Now you were a rifleman?
I was a rifleman
Okay.
at that time, yes.
Okay.
And once we got to Camp Gruber, or to Marseille, France, is where we were sent. We were being fought over between the 7th and 3rd Army as to which army we would be assigned to. And this battle took place for about a week. Can I have some water?
Papers rolling?
Okay, now, we were at what point?
Well, we were in Marseille, and
Okay, and you were still being fought over by the two armies.
that's right, and it took about a week for them to flip a coin, and we ended up in the 7th Army, which was commanded by Alexander Patch, General Patch. And we were sent to our frontline positions on the Rhine River in Strasbourg, France.
Okay.
Um,
Now, you were telling me an interesting story as we were filling out the paperwork about what was across the river from Strasbourg, France.
Well, there was a smaller town across the river in Germany called Kehl, spelled exactly like my last name, Kehl. And all my buddies knew that I was of German descent, so that just emphasized the situation, and I was known as Kehl the Kraut from there on
Of course.
because of that. And
But they didn't make you mayor of the town, huh?
no, they didn't
Jeez.
make me mayor. But the other thing that was kind of weird until it came down from division headquarters was that the Alsatian people are French people who speak German, and this was very confusing for us green
American
troops who started beating up on a lot of these people because they thought they were the enemy.
They thought they were German, yep.
And so until something came down from division, I was kind of a spokesman for the French people who spoke German, telling my buddies, no, they're French people, leave them alone, they're our friends.
Now, do you speak French or German?
I speak, read, and write German.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Did your family come from Kiel, Germany?
No,
No, okay.
my father came from Stettin, Germany, and my mother came from East Prussia, a town called Königsberg, or if you interpret that, it's Kingsburg, East Prussia.
Okay.
And they migrated in 1923 to Muskegon, Michigan, who a German man that owned a brewery in Muskegon sponsored them, and that's the reason they were able to migrate. And they worked for this gentleman for some time before moving to Illinois.
Okay, other experiences going from France into Germany?
Well, after we were in Strasbourg for probably 2 or 3 weeks, the Battle of the Bulge began, and the entire division and the entire front line had to move back and retreat. And in our case, we retreated back to Nancy, which was in the province of Lorraine.
Okay.
And we regrouped there and refitted and resupplied ourselves. And then after a certain length of time, the battle was over, and the 101st Airborne Division, which held the line in
Bastogne.
Bastogne, uh, the American, British, and French front line jumped off early in the morning at 8 o'clock. I can't remember the date, but it started out with a 6-hour artillery barrage. And we knew what was coming. We had pushed all of our troops back up to a stabilized front line.
Now, is
And
this in the area of the bulge now you're talking about?
yes.
Okay, okay.
And the bulge was from all the way from the north to the south.
South, right.
But the main part of the bulge was more up north than it was up south, but it affected us just as much.
Okay.
We jumped off into what the area which was known as the Heart Mountains. And once the artillery barrage was lifted, we were supported by just about every day by 4 to 6 P-47 Thunderbolt fighter planes that were on strafing missions that strafed the German retreating troops
Okay,
back
so
into
this means the
Germany.
weather has cleared enough now
Yes.
that they're able to do
Yes.
this. Okay.
And they decimated the German army. It was awe-inspiring. There were dead horses, burning tanks, dead German soldiers, civilians, burned out, burning villages, and the Germans were on the run.
So they weren't putting up much resistance by this point in time.
Not by that time, but there were pockets of
Right.
resistance all the way into Germany. And one of the things that helped us more than anything else was the fact that the Germans' Air Force had run out of petrol or gasoline. They had plenty of airplanes, but you can't
No
fly
fuel.
them without gas in them. So we didn't have to worry too much about being strafed. That was our biggest worry. But I remember going into one town. It was a very small town, and we were on the move. And I walked into the village and saw a stack of German rifles in the village square. The troops that have already been there from our division had captured the surrendering troops that were there. And a German medic came out of this house, and he said that there were some wounded German soldiers in this house that desperately needed morphine. And I said, well, we don't have any morphine, but if you watch and wait for some tanks, American tanks that are coming up behind us, they may have some medics that might have some morphine. He said, these guys are in great pain and they're suffering. And I said, well, that's too bad.
You can only do what you can do.
Yeah. And then he said there was a captain in the house that wanted to surrender. I said, well, tell him to get out here. And he came out and he had this Sauer and Son Sewell pistol, automatic pistol on his side, which I relieved him of. And we sent him back with other prisoners that were coming through. And then I walked around the other side of that house and saw a pretty bizarre sight. There was a German soldier sitting on the steps who had obviously been wounded in the head, and his head was just as round as a basketball.
Good Lord.
His eyes were swollen shut, and he was not far away from death.
Right.
There was not much that I could do for him. So I just left him sitting there. He wasn't armed. And I went back around, and here comes 3 German soldiers into the village carrying rifles, and they were slung. So they said they wanted to surrender, and I said, well, throw your rifles in the pile over there. And they said, well, we've got some buddies up in the hills that want to surrender too. I said, well, tell them to get their tails down here and quit wasting time. So they waved their white flag, and about 3,000 troops came down.
Oh my God.
I'm like standing there with my mouth open. These guys could have wiped us out.
Yep, yep,
But they had had it up to here.
yep.
And a lot of them were old men and young boys.
Right.
And they just were
We've had
glad that it was
enough.
over.
Yep.
Threw their rifles down and were sent back to prisoner of war camps that were being set up almost daily because we were moving so
So
fast.
fast. Yep.
And
Now, did those German troops have food, or were they asking for food at that point in time?
they weren't asking for food, but I think they probably had some food with them. I didn't,
But not much.
not
yeah.
much, no.
Not much from what I've read.
They carried their canteens with them. They may have had some rations. We were moving so fast that I didn't pay much attention to it. So then what happened to me was I became a harbinger. Because
Now that's a what?
a harbinger is a person that goes out and seeks places where regimental headquarters, which was the 232nd Infantry Regimental Headquarters, which I was part of, my job was to be right behind the front lines, and then when the line became stable, I would move back to the first village that we had gone through and start kicking Germans out of their homes
So that you could set up the
so that
regimental
regimental
headquarters.
could move
Okay.
in and continue fighting the war without any interruption. And then I would stay there until the line started to move again, and then I would move out and be a harbinger again.
Now,
So-
you're a staff sergeant at this point in time?
No, I was a buck sergeant
You're a buck
at that
sergeant,
time.
okay.
Yeah. And
So you're across the river and you're in Germany itself now,
we went through Germany at Worms,
okay?
which we then bypassed Frankfurt and headed toward Würzburg.
Okay.
Now, Würzburg is in the beginning of Bavaria. It's in the southern part of Germany, and it's the wine country. And when we pulled into Würzburg, we went across the river. I can't remember the name of the river in Würzburg, but we went across it, went through the main part of town and to the outskirts. And we were right at the very outskirts because just a few blocks away, the hill went up probably 50, 60, 100 yards where all the vineyards were. And we took over a house just off of the main drag, and the rest of the troops came in, moved into the house. The line had become stable. And that night I pulled guard duty in front of this house that we were staying in. It was pitch black. And all of a sudden, just a half a block away, I heard all this screaming and laughing and yelling, and here comes what was amounted to probably a platoon of German soldiers. They must have been high on the wine because
Must
they
have
were
been.
acting like a bunch of idiots. And they came down the road right past my house that I was staying in, screaming and yelling. And at the end of that street were infantry troops of the 42nd, and they opened up on them with machine
Oof.
guns and rifle fire, and they got caught right into
Ow.
it. And you could hear the screaming. I got behind this post with my M3, which is commonly known as a grease
Grease
gun,
gun.
because it was looked like a grease gun.
Yep.
It was a 45 caliber, and I got, as I'm right-handed, I didn't want any bullets flying my way. I didn't shoot, but bullets were hitting the building across the street because I could see the sparks flying. And I waited until any of them that decided to come down my street, they would have had it. But instead, they retreated back up into the vineyards, and that's the last we saw them. For the rest of the night, you could hear the wounded ones moaning and so on till the next morning, and then they were hauled away. There were quite a few dead soldiers there.
Now, the German people in these towns, as you would come through them, what kind of reception did the general population give you?
They had white sheets and white flags hanging all
They
over
did.
the place. They were finished. They were friendly. We didn't run into any one of them that were hostile. I'm sure there may have been
There
some that
some,
were,
yeah,
but we sure didn't run into any of them. We were told that we might run into some Hitler youth that were fanatical, but we never ran into any of those. These would be kids that were young,
Yeah.
early teenage kids. And we never ran into any of those, at least not in my sector.
Now, some of the other gents that we've talked to have talked about actually, eating with the families that they were billeted with and that kind of stuff, and sharing the rations and that, because so many of the Germans didn't have enough to eat.
Whenever I kicked Germans out, they understood perfectly. Some of them objected, but I said that they would only be out for 2 or 3 days, maybe a day or so longer. We just needed their homes for a short while, and they complied without any problems at all. And I told them to leave everything the way it was. Don't take anything except food or whatever you want, food and clothing, bed sheets.
We're not here to loot.
You're right. And they complied. I got friendly with some that at Würzburg, I went up the hills and the vineyards, and the first house I came to, there was a German family there, and I sat and talked with them for about 45 minutes, and they were very friendly. And then I left. And from there, we went to Nuremberg. And Nuremberg had been bombed, and so we just kind of went through Nuremberg. And then at Nuremberg, we saw a bunch of B-17s, a whole squadron of them, flying overhead, and they dropped bombs on Schweinfurt, which was the next town, big town.
Ball bearing factories.
Ball bearing factories. And it's interesting because the Germans developed a anti-personnel mine called a bouncing Betty, which was a canister that had 3 prongs on it. And, and when you hit one of those prongs with your foot, it has exploded the inside canister went up in the air about 12 feet, and I don't know how many ball bearings made in Schweinfurt would fly out in
yeah.
every direction you could possibly think of, and anything within 50 feet was going to get tore
Shredded.
to pieces.
Shredded, yep.
So that plus the fact that the ball bearings was a very important part of their war effort
Efforts, right.
was the reason that Schweinfurt was such a big target. Bypassing Schweinfurt, we ran into the Danube River, which was swollen from winter, spring runoff.
Yep.
The engineers had completed a pontoon bridge, and I went across the bridge, and there was a farmhouse on the other side during the daylight hours. And after several hours, the pontoon bridge gave way. We lost several tanks that went into the river.
Now, it gave
Lost
way
the
as in
crews.
swept down the
They were
river, or?
swept.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
the pontoon bridge broke,
okay.
and they had to replace it, so
That would be a delay,
quite a
because you
delay.
don't have them just laying around, lying
Well-
about, you know?
The German Air Force did have what was called a Focke-Wulf fighter plane. It was one of their slower planes. And it made spy flights over our lines every night to see what we were up to. And it was during dusk. And the Focke-Wulf looked similar to the P-47, especially in dusk
Low
hour,
light, yeah.
low light. Well, the interesting thing that happened was while the pontoon bridge was being rebuilt, a battalion of AAA piled up on the other side of the river, and the battalion commander wisely set up the guns,
Yep.
and here comes this P-47 pilot. I don't know why he was there or what he was doing there. He was about 300 feet in the air, and he was probably going back to his base.
Base, probably.
And I'm standing outside looking up, and I seen this white sheet of tracer bullets going up, and you could see them, you know, bending because they were following that plane.
Mm-hmm.
And a fly couldn't have gotten through that
Through that
many-
barrage.
a barrage of bullets. And the plane crashed into a hillside, and here comes this parachute down. And the pilot was swearing, "You dumb SOBs, what the hell are you doing shooting me down?" All the way down to the ground, and he was still
Still cussing.
got a
huh?
hold, yeah, he still got a hold of the battalion commander, he's raised hell with him, and I can just see the commander going, "Sorry,"
Yeah.
and
You look like the 190 that's been looking at us
Yeah.
every night, you know?
yeah, 190, yep. We called him Bed Check Charlie.
Bed check, Charlie, okay.
And then the next day we moved out, and we were on this paved road heading into this village, and there was gunfire up ahead and some resistance about a quarter of a mile away. And some of the infantry troops were alongside. I was sitting in the back of a 2.5-ton truck with some of the other GIs, looking out the back, and I saw this Jeep coming about 150 yards behind, and all of a sudden I see this flash and a puff of smoke, and this Jeep came out of the smoke flying through the air with a lieutenant in the front seat, hit about 15 or 20 yards behind me and hit the pavement and just scraped and ended up about 10, 15 feet away from me. The other guys went flying out the side of the Jeep, and they hit a teller mine with a ratchet device on
Ooh.
it, set for 12 vehicles.
Oh my God.
And we were the 11th vehicle. And if you didn't think that made me sit up and take notice,
That
I thought
close.
about that for quite some time. In fact, I think about it even today, what might have happened if we'd have been just one more vehicle
Yep.
behind. Because we ran right over that thing. I know we did.
Dang.
Cleared out the town, and then the line started moving real fast then, because resistance was very, very low. So the next thing you know, I'm being a harbinger again, and I walk up to this place called Dachau concentration camp. And I went through the gates. The 242nd Infantry Division, 242nd Regiment of the 42nd Division had already been there. Some of my 232nd companies had gone through. By the time I got there, those prisoners that were there the longest, that were still standing, looked like all of them. They were skeletons, and they had that 1,000-yard stare. And they just couldn't comprehend that they had been liberated.
Yep.
And the ones that were on the ground that couldn't get up were probably anywhere from minutes to hours away from death. Those that were there the shortest time knew what was happening, were hugging our legs and all but kissing our feet and thanking us. And I had found out later that they had, the prisoners had identified their SS guards who had put on prisoner garb,
Yep.
were trying to hide their identity.
Right.
And we violated the Geneva Convention. We wiped them out right there on the spot. And the reason was because of Malmedy. The Germans made a very big mistake when they killed our troops
Just massacred them.
at Malmedy.
Yep.
It made us angry and vengeful, and we didn't give those people any quarter at all, especially the SS guards.
Right. Now, when you rolled up to the gates, because you already had regiments or elements of your regiment in there, you already knew what this was, right?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
And
Was that well known throughout the troops in the area? Or no?
I don't think so. It might have been. It might have been.
Now, do you think that the German townsfolk knew what was there? Because there's been such a big debate about that.
I think they knew, but I think they were covering it up.
They just turned a blind eye.
Later on, after the war, when I went into counterintelligence corps in Berlin looking for Nazis, that's what I heard from even the good German people. We didn't know. We didn't know. They had to know.
That's right.
I mean, people disappeared and they never came back.
Right.
So where did they go? In any case, we went from there to Munich, which wasn't far away. And interesting experience happened to me in Munich. I was at the outskirts of Munich, And I walked into this gate, opened the gate, and the house was sitting in the back. It was a very large house, and I was prepared to take it for regimental headquarters. And all of a sudden, this German shepherd came running on a dead run, teeth bared, right at me. And he was not going to fool around with me at all. And I cocked that M3 and was just about ready to let loose on him. And the woman of the house came out, "Nein, nein, nein, bitte, 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 nicht schießen, nicht schießen." She said, "Don't shoot,
Don't
please,
shoot.
please, please don't shoot." And she called the dog off, and he put on the brakes, ended up right in front of me, and I had the gun ready just in case, and he backed off. So that was interesting. She thanked me very profusely for not shooting her dog.
Oh.
After Munich, we went down the Autobahn, and we found out where the ME-282 jet fighters were being hidden. They had cut out little spots on both sides of the Autobahn and used the Autobahn for a runway, and then camouflaged the planes
Pretty
under
smart.
those. Yeah, pretty smart. And
How many did you find?
huh?
How many did you find?
Oh God, I can't remember. Quite a few, probably a couple dozen.
Oh, wow.
And we had some of them flying overhead. In fact, at one point there was one that I heard coming, and I was in a Jeep with a 50 caliber machine gun on it, and I cocked that damn thing and pulled the trigger. I was following him, and it wouldn't go off. It jammed. I pulled it again, and nothing happened. So I missed my chance to shoot down
No,
a
it's 262.
jet.
I'll be
Yeah,
darned.
yeah.
Not too many people can say that now.
Yeah. That was really something. These other guys I was with, they were laughing like crazy. Anyway, to make a long story short, we ended up on the Czechoslovakian border in a town called Titmoning, which was a border town, German town with Czechoslovakia, German town. We set up our division headquarters there, and all of a sudden, here comes hundreds of thousands of German troops from Italy that came through Brenner Pass, and they were all already disarmed, but we got orders to reprocess them before we let them go back home.
All right, this would be when in 45?
May of 45.
This would be May of 45,
Yeah.
okay.
The Germans had already surrendered.
Mhm.
But an interesting thing happened there. Can we take a break here? Because I gotta check and make sure that.
It's rolling.
Okay, so the troops are coming down, and you have to pat down these troops to research them.
We had to research them, and took quite a while because there were so many of them.
Right.
And almost all of them were combat troops and support troops.
So were there a
And,
lot of old men and youth in this group too?
Yeah,
Okay.
and there were a lot of younger teenagers in it.
Okay.
And of course, you know, I was a teenager myself at the time.
All right.
Actually, you know, I'm 19, 20 years old. But these were obviously kids, the ones that were drafted toward the end of the war. But they were part of the German army that fought against General Mark Clark and the British general in Italy that had surrendered, and they came through Brenner Pass. So we received orders to search them, and The German army had a lot of women in it, mainly women who were either medics or support type
Anti-aircraft?
units and anti-aircraft units. And so we had line after line after line, and because I speak, read, and write German, my job was to pat them down to make sure they weren't carrying any concealed weapons of any kind. And so I asked each one of them for their Saltbuch. Now the Saltbuch means soldier book, which was the same as our dog tags. It contained a record of who they were, where they were from, their birth date, and all that, vital statistics, and gave it back to them when I was through, making sure that they were who they were, because we knew that there were high Nazi officials that were posing as German troops trying to escape. So I got to this one line and searched about 4 or 5 guys. And here's this 20-year-old girl, she was from an anti-aircraft unit because she had these wings on her collar. And she was very attractive, and then I had to pat her down. So we didn't have any women in our army to do the patting, so I patted her down, and I was looking up and down at her for hidden weapons, and she didn't like the way I was looking at her, so she blurted out in German, "Was willst du, ein Sechser?" And of course, the word Sechser to me meant sex. And the guy next to her said, "Watch out," because he knew what she meant. And I didn't. It wasn't until much later that I found out that Sechser had nothing to do with sex. It was a slang expression for a German coin, like a quarter is called 2 bits. In this country, 2 bits, 4 bits, 6 bits, and what she was saying was, "What are you looking at? You want 2 bits for the look?" And so I got mad at her way after the fact. Of course, that was the last thing on my mind anyway. But I didn't understand, so I let it pass. Didn't do anything about it. But I knew something was wrong because the guy next to her said, "Be careful," you know. So I knew she had said something that wasn't too complimentary.
Right.
After that, I was assigned to occupation duty in Salzburg, Austria. We moved to Austria, and then we moved to Wannsee. No, that was in Berlin. We moved to other towns in Austria that hosted Olympic Games later on.
Now, were you in counterintelligence at this point in time?
No, I was still in the 42nd Rainbow, but they found out that I could speak, read, and write German,
Right, so
they transferred me to Berlin.
Okay.
And I came to Berlin and went into a counterintelligence unit looking for Nazis. And we were interested only in people who were in the National Socialistic Arbeitspartei, the Nazi party,
Sorry. Okay.
who were county leaders
And above.
and up.
Okay.
And
With the idea then that you were going to put them on war trials or what?
war trials.
Okay.
We were to arrest them, make out interrogation reports, and court hearings to try them. We
Did you find many?
Huh?
Did you find many?
Oh yeah, and we also found Axis Sally.
Aha.
And Axis Sally was an American citizen Her name was Margaret Gillers, and she was from Ohio. And we caught her because of a piece of furniture that she had bought and left to pick up later. And she had a lot of friends, and we found out that they were kind of hiding her. She was always one step ahead of us, but because of this piece of furniture, she had to come back and get it,
she
so
got
we
tripped
were
up.
waiting for her.
Yep.
And that's how we caught her and arrested her.
What happened to her?
Well, she was tried, and she was given 30 years. We thought she was going to get the firing squad, but they didn't. And we asked her in the interrogation, "Why did you do this? What were you thinking?" And she said, "Well, I was already here, and when in Rome, do as the Romans do." That was her answer.
Seemed like the thing to do at the time.
Yeah, kind of dumb.
Yeah.
She could have gone back to America, but she made the wrong choice.
Yep.
I don't know what happened to her after she went to jail, but then I went out of the Army in 1946, and went home for a year and got homesick for Germany and re-enlisted. And I had to take a drop in rank, which was from buck sergeant to corporal, but with the same pay, and went back to Germany. And then I ended up in MID, which was Military Intelligence Division, in Berlin. And my job in those days was to spy against Russia in the Russian zone. And I had a network of German nationals who lived in the Russian zone and who knew that after a certain length of time of giving us intelligence reports and our checking the validity of them, that after so many missions they would get a free trip to the West
Wow.
at our expense. And so that's what I was doing in Berlin the second time from 1947, 1948 until 1950. And then I discharged again and never looked back.
Then what did you do after you were finally discharged the last time?
Well, I finally ended up as a cemetery lot salesman selling pre-need cemetery lots
Okay.
in Illinois, Wisconsin, and Alaska. And then while in Alaska, I also went into the funeral service business and opened up my own funeral home here, and then I bought another one in Palmer.
That's why I was wondering if you
It's
were that Kehl.
Kehl's Forest Lawn Mortuary. And then in 1970, I started doing grief counseling, and I went to a couple of classes at UAA in psychology, and joined the Association for Death Education and Counseling. And as a result of that, I became certified as in death education and counseling. And then later, they changed the certification to its present form, which is what I am now, which is thanatology. Now, don't get this confused. Nobody knows what thanatology is. It has nothing to do with the sanitation department hauling off garbage. It's
It just sounds similar. It's
I know,
okay.
and every time I say thanatology, I get the same reaction. What is it? I wish they'd have left it alone,
That's
but
right.
they didn't.
Just leave it alone.
Yeah. So I've been certified since 1990 in thanatology, and I operate a grief support group for people who have lost a loved one as a result of a death. And I co-lead another group for the Alaska Police Chaplains Association, which is a suicide survivors group, and I do grief counseling in that group. And grief in this country is so misunderstood by a nation of people. They don't understand it. They fear it. They try to avoid it. They use denial. They use avoidance. There are millions of people who use alcohol and drugs to avoid it. There are those who become workaholics to avoid it, and there are millions of people in our society who actually believe that they can run away from it by getting on an airplane and going to some fun place.
Yep.
And we're paying a very dear price for a process that is trying very hard to heal them. The culprit is not grief. The culprit is death. That's the culprit. It triggers grief, which is the surgeon that tries to heal this invisible hole that opens up every time you lose someone, and tries to stitch it up and heal the loss. And my job is to take grief in a non-professional mode and explain it to people in groups or one-on-one or in any type of group you can name, in language that they can understand and use to cope with grief in a much better fashion than they are now. And as a result of this, it makes the grief process much shorter, and they can begin to understand all of the conflicting feelings and all of the conflicting different behaviors that happen to people during the grief journey, so that they can cope with it a lot better and end up relatively healthy with a better outlook on life and learn to live without the person or persons that they lost. And I have been to many professional seminars, and they're all very, very good, but they're for professionals.
Yeah.
If you take a professional seminar to a group of people that are just lay people, they're going to sit there and it's going to go through one hole and right out the other. They can't understand it.
Right.
I change the language so that they can understand it. It's really very simple, and yet it's very complicated at the same time. Classic behavior of grief is the emotional roller coaster ride, which scares people half to death. When they're going up on the roller coaster, they're having so-called good days of grief, which really are not good days. They're about 150% better than the bad days, which makes them feel like good days. And then all of a sudden, boom, they go down to the bottom where all the pain and anguish and despair is, and you have conflicting feelings at both ends. And they clash like two trains on the same track. And they don't understand this. And most of them think there must be something wrong with me. I'm losing my mind. I'm going crazy. And they're not.
Yep.
And then I explain, well, what do you do with guilt? What do you do with anger? What do you do with all these other feelings and things that people have? And I do that through Dr. Eric Burns' transactional analysis of grief. The parent, the adult, and the child, which encompasses our personality.
Yep.
When the parent comes out, you're going up. When the child comes out, you're going down.
Yep.
And when people understand this up and down thing, and the parent and the child, it makes it so much easier for them to bear the pain.
Now, we always ask one last thought-provoking question,
Okay,
and it can be anything. If you had one message to leave to future generations from your life's experience, what would that one message be?
don't forget what happened at Dachau,
Why do you say that?
because we defeated the Nazis, but we didn't kill them. They're still alive, and they're very well. And they're very well right here in Anchorage, Alaska, as well as the rest of the country. The skinheads, the American Nazi Party, the Ku Klux Klan.
Now, the Iranian president just said the Holocaust never happened. That was on the news today.
That's why we need to keep this alive from generation to generation. I was there. I saw it with my own eyes. I know it happened.
See, that's why General Eisenhower called in the press and says, I want this recorded, because there's
Yes.
going to come a time in the future where you say this never happened.
That's right.
Here it is.
Exactly right.
David Dukes.
If they ever get back in power, the Jews will be the first ones lined up.
Right.
When they're done with them, it will be the black people. When they're done with them, it will be the brown and yellow people. And after that, us white people, if we don't kowtow to their way of thinking, we will be next, and I can guarantee it.
Because we're all inferior.
Yeah.
Okay, we would like to thank you, Fred, for this interview, and most of all, thank you for your service to the nation.
Thank you. I appreciate this very, very much, and I hope that it help keep this story alive.
How'd you find out about us?
I saw an article. It just met the man.
Yeah, he's